So if I
And
look a little ragged, it's because I went down a little rabbit hole last night watching some
uh
interesting stuff.
oh, uh
All right, so we will kick right into this, and I will intro for everybody. This is Kervin Aucoin of Aucoin Analytics. I will let him tell his story in specific. Kervin has an extensive experience in military analysis, geopolitical events, and a very extensive experience in the professional world of drones. So there is no one that is, in my mind and my network, more suited to have a conversation with me, not about the conspiracies that we all have fun checking out and Googling online and going down rabbit holes, but about the logic and about the what we can assume given the information that's in front of us, and then what we also can deductively reason what it might be. Everything I want to preface everything that we say. If you are looking for a conspiracy theorist rant for 40 minutes, that's not what you're going to find here. But if you are a citizen that is concerned and a citizen that is confused and is looking for some information to ground them in what's going on, this is the conversation to tune into today. So, Kervin, I appreciate your friendship as always, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. So I will just jump it right off because these questions are naturally going to tell your story and give your background throughout the conversation as well. So starting off, given your experience with the ISR operations, what are your initial thoughts now that we're a few weeks in on the situation in New Jersey with the drones? Kind of what are your initial thoughts and scenarios that you think are kind of going on here?
Yeah, well, first of all, man, thank you for having me back on. It's always good talking to you. Yeah, so for first initial thought, seeing the things over New Jersey would be, well, when you see 180 reports a night, we seem to think, oh, drone swarms. We've got 180 drones, that are car sized, plane sized. So what's going on there? Well, first of all, there's this, we wouldn't call it mass hysteria because people are seeing it. You are seeing it in Pennsylvania as well. But what is happening is there's a lot of reporting on the same aircraft that's being seen. And some of those are actually commercial aircraft that, because of this hysteria that's going on, and hysteria is not a bad word. That's just what happens when things are confusing and we're left without any answers, which is my problem with the government response to this, is that they're not giving it quality answers to it. So first, we'll go into what the majority of the reports are. Most of the reports are probably coming from the same group of aircraft, and some of which are commercial aircraft. They're just large. And because we've got these reports, everyone's looking up in the sky. Everyone wants to see what's going on up there. When typically at night, if you're just sitting around, you're usually in your house, or if you're driving around, you should be focused on the road, maybe not on the sky, but then you see something that piques your interest, and then you hear what's going on in New Jersey, and you're in the Jersey, Pennsylvania, sort of that upper northeast of the United States, and you want to see what's up there. So you identify that, and then you look and see, and the lights look like it's something that is car sized, or you're seeing a commercial aircraft, but this is the first time you've seen it at night flying that low for whatever reason. And that piques your interest. And so you call and make a report on it. And then you get 190, 180, 190 reports of these aircraft. And yes, they are unidentified aircraft at this time, because we, as far as the civilian population, do not know. We don't know exactly what they are. But when you're looking at the videos, you can kind of get a sense that a few of these are what we call the quadcopters. So in military speak, we would call it SUAS. SUAS is small unmanned aerial systems. Some of these aircraft are even manned aircraft. They're smaller manned aircraft flying at night with their lights on. So what's my instant analysis of that is that something's going on. Somebody's testing out some equipment, and they're flying these, and people are starting to see it. And it's becoming more prevalent now because somebody saw something, said something, created this this arena where everyone's going to want to look at the sky and see what's going on up there. So that is what it is. I know you didn't ask about this part, but I do want to get right ahead of the Iranian mothership theory, because there's two factors to this. One is how the media reports when, say, a congressman says something that they heard, off chance in the Capitol. I believe it was Congressman Van Drew, I believe is what his name is. And he's not in the intelligence committees or anything like that. So he wouldn't be privy to any kind of classified information. And what he kind of said was, I kind of heard an assessment that there is a chance that it could be coming from an Iranian mothership. And he also mentioned about China, that could have been fueled by China. And boy, that sent people down quite the rabbit hole looking at that. Now so the media. So what do I say? First of all, the media comes out and says, well, look, Senator Van Drew said that it was an Iranian mothership. That's not what he said. He said that he heard an assessment of it, and then the media ran that as fact because they have to, because they need clicks, and that gets you clicks. Now, the second part of that is that's easily debunked through satellite imagery. So I said it on the podcast for This Week Explained. That's coming out today. That's coming out as we're talking right now, but we recorded yesterday, and when Tiana, who's my co-host and wife, she mentioned, well, how would you know if it's not an Iranian mothership? Well, you look at satellite imagery at that time period when those would have launched. And this whole theory came because some people said they saw these drones coming, off of the ocean and then into to their airspace. So that would mean it had to come from some ship. They're not coming from underneath the ocean, which was another rabbit hole I think some people went down. But
it was one of the ones, the live cam that was going on on the beach in New York, and I think a lot of people forgot about the horizon.
Oh yeah, and that tends to happen. Look, I mean, we get wrapped up in it, and I'd much rather talk about this than what I'll be talking about with the news later, which is Russia bombarding Ukraine's critical infrastructure. Much rather talk about conspiracy theories with drones and could they be aliens. Look, I know you set it up. We're not going to have a conspiracy talk, but I love conspiracies. I do talk about it because they're just fun. They're fun to discuss. But we're going to talk about logically what these are. So I mentioned the satellite imagery. We could quickly tell if there was an Iranian ship off the coast. Also, the Coast Guard would have alerted somebody to an Iranian ship off the coast. And I've dealt with this before doing some signals intelligence exercises off the coast of North Carolina. And there was a Russian ship that was trying to intercept it. And so it's a good training exercise because it kind of went real world where we can try to defeat their capabilities while they're trying to intercept our capabilities. And it's nothing that's not something that would cause a war. That's just like I said, that's something that helps me as an intel analyst understand what they're doing, and then helps them understand what we're doing. So we would know that the U.S. government would know if those ships were off the coast because we'd be alerted to it. And then just today, I did see that there was a report in Business Insider that somebody did go over the satellite imagery in that area at that time, and there were no Iranian motherships, and they did actually identify. And this is quotes. Iranian mothership is sort of a quote unquote. That's what we're calling it. What really it is a launching point for a drone swarm. That's what the mothership would be. And so they did find this Iranian drone swarm ship, much further than the east coast of the United States. It was not actively involved anywhere around the United States. So we can debunk that pretty quickly. But look, there are some videos and photos of these devices that are intriguing. And is it aliens? It's not a 0% chance, but the most likely thing is that it is either newly designed drones, not even military. It could even be hobbyists. And we might get into this later, but look, as far as the Department of Defense is concerned, we, in an unclassified capacity, we are working with systems with 3D printers and using AI and machine learning that you can just tell the 3D printer what you need a drone to do. and it will design it in the most efficient way possible. So the design's not going to look when these, and I've seen some of these designs that have popped out for different things on the battlefield, and they don't look like anything made on Earth, because it's a computer that is dreaming this up, and then no human hands are on that saying, no, well, that doesn't look right, and you need a wing here, or you need something here. They're just building these devices, and they look very weird. And that could be what some of these are. But my problem is.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yep, you're good.
Oh yeah, I'll just finish up with my problem is the government's response to it. Like, somebody knows something, and to tell everyone we just don't know, but we know that that the payload that's on it does not harm. There's no harm to civilians or the military or the government. You can't say that and then say, but we don't know what it is.
And that's the number one thing. And I think for me personally, and my partner and I, for the podcast, we've seen it. We've seen them. We've seen two I saw. Two we saw were blatantly drones, and they had tails on the back of not necessarily steam, smoke, whatever it was on the back. And then they both came in on an intersection and then just stopped and then just held to each other. So like as you watch the sky all the time, and I'm naturally I've been a big alien fan my whole life, and I do have different conspiracy theories that I love, but also logic comes into play. And every day you see planes go across and they'll streak in the clouds and things like that. But it was like both of us had actually made us pull over, because usually when they go like this, they'll eventually cross and make the X. And they never made the X. And then they held there for about a half an hour, and we sat in the parking lot and just watched how they held themselves there. And then last Friday night, as I was driving out near Dover Air Force Base, it was a weird one. It was a ball, and it was up in the air. And I've seen other drones that are balls that can do all this. So that's not, I didn't immediately go in the moment. I went alien for about 5 seconds, and then afterwards, saw the blinking flash underneath of it. That began to be that, but it was a ball, and it was a ball that had a blinking flash underneath of it. And I've seen in other drone research getting ready for this, that even in China right now, and this is not me putting blame or responsibility to China, but they have a ball drone that the police force uses. So that concept of an unwinged propeller kind of thing is already in action. So to put that in the air wouldn't be that wild of a concept. Let's talk a little bit about the difference of what this means from a public, I don't want to say public safety, but I want to say public concern. And so this is kind of, I'll talk a little bit about how this is a little different than, let's say, the Chinese weather balloon from a while ago. That was much higher. That was much different of a trajectory. Now we're in a situation where this is in neighborhoods, and it's the part that the media is kind of segmenting that is troublesome is they keep focusing on the airports and the other thing and the military bases, and even in the press briefing last night with the Pentagon, him saying basically that it's not over any unauthorized airspace and it's unlawful. Does this mean that we are seeing a future, and I don't mean future distant sci-fi Robert Heinlein type thing, I mean future now, I mean future present? Should we be just more comfortable with seeing more drones around if everybody's comfortable with them being over our homes? I mean, is that another factor, is that this is a world we're not used to, and it does exist in other places, seeing drones all over the place all the time?
Yeah, it's a great question, because drones are still in the history of mankind are so recent that we just don't have experience with it, right? And when I came in to this field, so I was deployed 2004, 2005 in Iraq. We were throwing Ravens up, which is a probably very similar to what people are seeing. So a Raven is smaller than what you would typically look at it from an unmanned ISR. If you know MQ-1 or MQ-9, which is Reaper, the MQ-9 is the Reaper. They're fairly large. They look like an aircraft, and they go very high. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about those kind of large scale drones. We're talking about what I said to Suez, the small unmanned aerial systems, and those can fluctuate from the size of a car to the quadcopters that we're used to even look. We're making some that look like birds and bees, insects, and things like that. That's how small these can get. So the future is in drones. You're going to see Amazon I've already talked about using drones to drop packages off, and you can put AI technology onto it, make these completely autonomous where there is no pilot, and then just let them fly one location to another, and using machine learning, they'll find the right thing. The issue that becomes is the government has to regulate the airspace. So no, I don't think we should be comfortable with drones just flying over someone's house and collecting on an individual. We wouldn't let that happen. We wouldn't let our neighbors do that to us. I don't think the government should be allowing that just to happen, especially if it's a foreign country, not even an adversary, like the Canadian government flying drones over the United States. I would want to know that, right? The American people should know about that. And I'm not saying that that's what this is, but it's part of my issue with the government response to this. It's
two ways. Regardless of who it is, even if it is ours, we should know about it. And then from my experience, my degree and what I went to college for is public relations. So I'm well versed, and I've lived a very long career in marketing and manipulation and sales. So where this becomes textbook is, I'm not saying textbook cover up, but textbook not knowing how to handle this situation. And that's really, and you can also, from a behavioral standpoint, I watch a lot of press conferences, and I consume a lot of media, and there are a lot of, and this is not a conspiracy theory, this is just the way it is visually, they're very uncomfortable, and the people that are up there are not their normal selves in these press conferences, and they're not answering the questions from a human behavior the same way. And that is very visually evident based on the fact of their trajectory if you watch media consistently over the period of this administration and any administration. And that part, I'm not saying that it means aliens, but I am saying that that there is something that is known that is not being shared, regardless of what the answer is.
Yeah, absolutely. So
this administration doesn't have a good poker face, I guess is what I'm gonna say. both especially yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think that their assessment is that none of these pose a danger to the government, the U.S. people, the U.S. military, is probably because of the actions of these drones. Or we call them, I mean, even the U.S. government's calling them drones. So we're going to call them drones. What they're doing is, if you were doing if let's say it's an adversary and it's a clandestine operation, you're not going to, as somebody who's been involved in some of these, you're not going to have all your lights on. Like I have had someone fired because they did, on a mission, they did turn the lights on one of the MQ-9s, and that alerted the enemy that we were in the area, and they immediately were fired because of that. So yeah, they wouldn't have the lights on. And then I get that as they're being approached, all their lights go off, and that kind of turns. So a lot of people say, well, that could be, aliens. They don't want to be detected, so they immediately go off. The lights go off. But if they had the technology to get here and to do this kind of stuff, I think they would have the technology to understand that they're being looked at, even without another aircraft or something getting close to it. They would know. They would be a lot smarter than us and wouldn't have the lights on, and they wouldn't want to show themselves. The only other thing you could push back on that is maybe they do want to show themselves. Maybe they do want some people to identify that they're here and they're trying to do something. I'm willing to go down that rabbit hole myself and have private conversations about that, but I just don't think that that's happening. The issue here is we need to know what they are. And if you're going to say, well, this is just a secret military operation, that should have been the first thing that you said. That's what we've always heard with sort of the alien talk, is that, well, these are secret military operations, and you can't be privy to it. And look, the U.S. government's really good about it. As somebody who's been in certain areas that pique the interest of UFO or UAP aficionados. I've been in those locations and have seen some shady things happen because there is new technology coming out. And it's like to the point where they go, I need you to put your head down and close your eyes because for the next 20 minutes, you can't see what's going on. Well, it's like, okay, I get that.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me the most about this. And when we go through this type of thing is understanding the technologies that exist today. And with AI, the fact that you were talking about with AI and being hooked up to a 3D printer, those of us that are in the AI world can understand that the possibilities are absolutely endless as what visually and design wise would come out of that. And even from the loops and from the trajectories and things like that. One thing for anybody that is just now like understanding about what's going on is that a few days in on it, let's go back a little bit to December and into Langley and where this was going on for a similar period of time, to be honest with you, but it didn't hit the national news as much as this is hitting this week and stuff like that. So, and also Colorado a few years ago and stuff like that. So these swarms where the government kind of shrugs their shoulders have happened a few times recently, but this one has definitely garnered a lot of media attention and buzz with social media and being because it's happening over residential as opposed to the others being the military bases.
Well, I think a bigger concern is outside of the United States. In the UK and now in Germany, we have seen U.S. Bases in the UK. Then just saw in Ramstein, which is in Germany. It's a place I've been to before. That these similar drone swarms were flying over there, and we are given no like I'm not even given any information. If anyone thinks I'm fed or part of the military industrial complex and already know about this, I'm not getting any information about it, and I don't have any sources that could even tell me what it is. And the governments in the UK and then what we would call U.S. forces, Europe Command, EUCOM, have given no indication as to what they are. And that's a big deal. That's even more so than having these drone swarms that could very well be hobbyists that have created their own and are just throwing these in the air and seeing how they fly and how they're designed. The ones that are near Air Force bases, near military bases in other countries the U.S. service members are serving in, that's a concern. And I know we're not getting any answers for it, but I hope the commanders, at least, the commander of EUCOM forces and then their all of their leadership, that they're actually getting answers about that, because that's a problem. That's an intelligence problem, and we need to have a solution for that.
And also, just to kind of tie into geo, like the entire globe is experiencing this at the moment in various places, spread out throughout the United States and everywhere else in the world. Also across the United States, and this is we're seeing the reports over Washington. I saw the 2 pilots yesterday that were running a medvac. All of a sudden, ran into them off the coast of Washington, off the coast of California. Now last night was Massachusetts and some other spots. So it's turning, and I'm not saying that from an alarmist standpoint. I'm just saying that while the title of this episode is called Drones Over Jersey, since we came up with this idea 24 hours ago, it is much expanded.
See, I love that's what I called it on the podcast, because we do so on the episode. You can go check out the episode after you're done listening to this one. We do. It wasn't on my radar until the whole Iranian mothership, and so I had to get involved into it and look into it, and that's what I called it: Drones Over Jersey. That's what we're here. You had bombs over Baghdad, now we have drones over Jersey.
I tell you, I have 2 questions that were user submitted that I'll give in, but I have one joke or one thing and then one joke before this. So one thing I want to talk about, and I want to be close on time on this, but I want to talk a little bit about with the way the world is a little bit. And I don't want to put you on the fly here, but the way the world is and the wealth equalities and all the other things with corporations, if it ends up, I think from a marketing and PR and propaganda standpoint, if this turns out to be private contractors that are allowed to have free open space and hover over top of our homes, given the recent incidences that are happening and the wealth inequality debate that's going on in the United States, if that turns out to be the case, I fear that is going to begin to begin a very big social decline as far as that goes, as far as trust of the government, as far as trust as corporations. And that part is really going to, honestly, disappointing is the word I would use. And if that ended up be the case, that we're allowed private enterprise to just hang out over our house, and everybody's just going to not say it's that, which would have been fine. If everybody would have just come out and said, listen, we're testing some new stuff, no big deal, whatever. Everybody would have went back to Netflix and moved on with their lives. But
there's a small sect of people that would have been like, oh, they're distracting us from something else, and gone down the rabbit hole. But you're absolutely right. The majority of people would go, oh, okay, all right. Well, I know I don't trust the government that much, but they've identified what it is, and they're telling us, maybe not exactly what it is, but that it's not going to do any harm.
Because that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm in business. I mean, you got to test things. You have to test things in real life. You have to do different things, and that makes sense. And but to then cross over to people's homes and hanging out and all this stuff, and that's where it gets to be a little different. Then we're also, seeing the reports of not necessarily EMP blasts, but electrical malfunctions are beginning to happen on the ground when these drones are coming through. I'm here locally, and I'm seeing reports from people I know that I saw a video last night of all these cars flashing their lights in their backs in New Jersey last night, like a Wegmans parking lot or something like that. Like, that's not normal. Nobody went around and coordinated you've been to a parking lot before. If you're going to coordinate 50 people flashing their cars, people in society don't coordinate like that. So one of the things is I'll go to these two. I'll be honest with everybody. I want everybody to know that we're not trying to downplay this. Kervin and I spend a lot of time in conspiracy theories, and I'm holding back a lot of the things that I want to say, because I want this to be a grounded conversation that doesn't pose alarm. And eventually maybe we'll have a conversation of the fun theories and things like that. So I do want
to say something about.
Hey creators, founders, and dreamers, the FreeMind Network is brought to you by Cowabunga Johnny, where nostalgia meets creativity. Cowabunga Johnny creates custom cards that are perfect for personal keepsakes, team recognition, or even promotional items. These cards pop with personality and make an unforgettable impact. But that's not all. Cowabunga Johnny also crafts larger-than-life murals and nostalgic pop culture-inspired art. It's about connecting with your audience through bold, memorable visuals. Want to learn more? Visit cowabungajohnny.com and see how he's turning memories into art that connects. Let's create something amazing together.
About your assessment there, that I do think that might be the most likely scenario here, is that this was done by possibly a corporation who was testing something out. They started doing that, and they didn't admit to it. And down the line, they'll admit to it, and it'll come out. Or it was a publicity stunt, which is maybe even the most likely scenario. This is a possible publicity stunt. And Hollywood does it all the time. Look, we had mass hysteria during the Blair Witch Trials movie. People thought that was real, and it was a publicity stunt that was done. This could very well be one. And then we find out, Pepsi was doing something, or whoever controls Pepsi in the umbrella of all the three corporations that own everything in the United States, that they were actually testing these. They weren't testing these devices. They were trying to cause mass hysteria as a publicity stunt. And then you go, oh, look, Pepsi did it. And any news is good news for a corporation. And people can go out there and they'll, oh, now I'll go get Pepsi because I thought that was funny.
And on the flip side, it could be the opposite. It could not even be about, and this is not a conspiracy theory, but this is a real thing that could happen with the way you need to control and organize a society. Is it could just be a psychological thing to actually figure out how people would react, because we do know there is a impending drone swarm that will happen from another adversary. If it's not this one, it's going to happen in our lifetime. It already is happening. You know what I mean? But I'm saying that it could be because we do need to have action plans, and we do need to have recovery plans. And in order to create that, why not do sample some real-time reactions to see, if 17 days of a drone hanging over somebody, would they snap? Would they shoot it with a gun? Would they, and those, I'll be very honest, I'll make the joke because I'm from Philadelphia. The fact that they've been flying over Jersey with nobody like lighting them up and bringing them down has been unconfirmed. I'm sure jokes out there, but we have not had any confirmed harvestings or downings. And flying over New Jersey, kudos to New Jersey for their character, but I'm surprised that they're letting them there that long.
Especially flying that low. I mean, typically when we're flying government drones, they are flying very high enough that we don't want anyone detecting that they're actually flying over. And these are not doing that. So this tells me either the people that are doing it are ignorant and don't know that they can be spotted from that high, or they don't care. They want to be seen. And that's why they're flying. So you've got those two options as well. And if there are EMPs on there, then the government saying that they do not pose harm, or they're not going to cause any harm, that's false, because EMPs will, harm our electrical grids, and they can harm your cell phones and things that we need to communicate. So yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered on this one.
And that's the one reason I do stick to the private corporation as my Husky one, is something you and I talked about, is the fact of the terminology and the semantics. And I pay a lot of attention to music lyrics. I pay attention to press releases. I pay attention to the words. And the words they keep saying are, it's not the U.S. military. They don't say, they don't expand upon that. And then we're, as the press, they're not pushing that question either. So it's like they're taking that like, oh, okay, it's not U.S., it's not us. That's not the case. If you take the semantics and take the verb and take all the words together, it's only specifically saying one specific sector of many sectors that exist in the United States.
Yeah, and they can say this is not U.S. military. And look, this is something. So when I was in Poland doing overt anti-Russian aggression with MQ-9 Reaper drones, I was on a contract, and it was a contract-owned, contract-operated, first of its kind, contract-owned, contract-operated ISR, unmanned ISR system. And the thing with this was that then the U.S. can say, well, it's not the U.S. military that's doing it. But obviously, we're being supported by the U.S. government. It's U.S. government money, and it's the U.S. military. But the government can say, look, it's not the U.S. military that's doing these flights. This is something completely different. And they'll say, we don't know what it is, or maybe they'll say, we can't tell you what it is. Sometimes I think they stand on a fine line there between saying they do know what it is, but then they want to say, we don't know what it is, when you could just say, I can't. We're always told in the intelligence community, you could say, when asked a question by a journalist, I can neither confirm nor deny that statement. So you don't definitively say no, you don't definitively say yes. I was listening to John Kirby yesterday. He had that smug look on his face. I love it. I love John Kirby's smug look that he always
does. Too. I mean, that's the thing, is he's got a great poker face. And sometimes he's not afraid to show, like, I got secrets, baby.
Yes. But he was very definitive in what he was saying. And I would expect more from John Kirby if he knew something, that he would say it in a better way. So so far, we're not solving any of the issues with this, you and me, but we can talk through it.
But we're breaking down the reality. We're breaking down the reality that I think a lot of people don't realize, and even to the very simplest form. And this is non-conspiracy. This is a reality. Is that we use private contractors for a lot of reasons. For efficiency, that we don't have our own infrastructure as a government to produce certain things. We have to outsource to private enterprise. That's a necessary piece of our life. On the flip side, when you outsource an entire project or an operation or production to that then protects the government from the Freedom of Information Act. So therefore, you can't file a Freedom of Information Act for a project that's funded through this, because X amount of I'm not going to name any corporations, but X corporation is protected because they're a private entity. So there's where the legalese of the world gets a little complicated, and the branches begin to intertwine. And that's the type of stuff that I want people to realize, is it's very much more complicated than just somebody going up and sending out some hobby drones. And also, before I go to the user question real quick, I want to also remind people that these drones are so large and so intelligent. And I don't mean intelligent like a sentient or anything like that. I mean, in the sense of that you don't have to be in New Jersey to be operating those drones. And I think people also need to realize that they're looking for a landing space in New Jersey or whatever else. And you can be a significant distance, because of these aren't the regular drones that your 12-year-old kid has out in the backyard.
Yeah, I can speak to that just for a couple of minutes before we get into the question there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So with some of our systems that we have overseas, they're actually being flown from the United States. I think people know that. There's sites in Nevada, Idaho. I tell a funny story sometimes about being in Afghanistan, and we're not able to fly one of our drones, and I'm asked by the commander what's going on. It's like, oh, they had a weather issue, and he walks outside and looks and goes, "What are they talking about? It's like sunshine and everything." And I was like, "Oh no, it was actually weather in North Dakota. There was a tornado that ripped through North Dakota," and that kind of, clicked in his brain of, "Oh, we're not dealing with something here. We have to also realize what's going back." We had a tornado at what's now Fort Liberty, but it was Bragg while I was in Afghanistan, that shut down all of Fayetteville, the area that we were operating from. And we had to down a lot of our aircraft because of that. So yes, typically these are, if they're of this size, they are not being flown directly over top. They could be anywhere from a mile to 100 miles from the location. So yeah, it could be coming from anywhere, but the United States has sort of devices in place that they would be able to track, with the frequencies. And I know some of these they're saying are going at frequencies that we can't see them at as far as the US government is concerned. That's another concern. Especially if it's hobbyists that are doing it and they've tracked down a frequency that the US government is not privy to, we're got to figure that out, because I tell you what, our adversaries are going to be operating in those frequencies, and they're going to be trying to do everything to shut critical infrastructure down in the United States. That's the real fear. That's what the real takeaway from all this is. We need to get the lessons learned from this and identify what's going on and how to counter this. The U.S. has a phenomenal counter UAS program as far as the U.S. military. That is there. They're going to take lessons learned from this, and if these are potential adversarial drones that are looking to collect intelligence, they're going to have to deal with those, and it'll make it better. It'll make them better at their jobs in the future whenever we are in a conflict.
Well, actually, these for the user questions yesterday, first one that came in was perfect because it actually is a drone company, and I believe they're in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is one of the affected areas outside that area as well. So it couldn't be more perfect and fitting. Their name is Aperture Aerials over in the Westchester, Pennsylvania area business there. So their question was, could they be manned drones similar to the Pivotal Helix based out of California that's currently in production and prepping to ship in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely could. We have heard that some of these are manned systems. Now, the manned systems that I worked with are actually pilots within the aircraft, and they're just Beechcraft 350 or these smaller, which you would look at in the corporate world to jet around. Maybe not your top line CEOs, but smaller companies would have some of these corporate aircraft. You outfit them with typical types of payloads like cameras and other systems in there, and then you've got a manned ISR asset. Could that be what's going on here? They're trying to test those out. It very well could be, but you would hope that somebody would speak up, right? That somebody would say, "Oh yeah, look, we're testing out this. We talked to the FAA, we got all this approved, and we're flying over." That should be the message that comes out beforehand, right? Hey, you're going to see things overhead. This is what it is. Now, there are some maybe corporate entities that wouldn't want that being broadcast because they wouldn't want people to know if this was, proprietary, some sort of proprietary device, and they're trying to test it out, and they didn't want other companies to be privy to what they're doing, so that those companies then get ahead of it, or those companies try to down it, and so they can get their hands on it. And just like we're talking in a government on government, military on military conflict, we see corporate conflict in one company trying to outdo the other. So that it's viable. I would still say it's only at possible for me, just to reiterate my possible, from 15% to 50%. So somewhere in that percentage chance that's what's actually going on here.
All right, the last from my partner and co-founder and CTO. He personally has seen them as well. And yesterday he actually was at a doctor's appointment, and there was he had it 3 days later, had one hanging. It was hanging over top of his doctor's office. So it's either following him or he's just noticing it all the time. So that's his joke in there. He said, "Are we under psychological warfare, and is that a possibility?"
Well, I think I made the comment yesterday, just thinking about how everything's a psyop, right? Everything's a psychological operation these days. Anything that happens, that's a psyop. And I made the comment of maybe everything's a psyop. And if you look at that meme where you've got the astronaut looking at the Earth, and then there's the other astronaut with a gun pointed to that astronaut's head, and the first one, I was like, wait, was everything a psyop? And then the guy in the back, it just says, always has been. So it's like, is everything a psychological operation? Yeah, it could be. Look, that's going to be an issue in a future war. So it's kind of, we can laugh about it right now, but we do need to understand that this is going to come into play. And the other thing that's coming into play is the sheer amount of misinformation based off of this, because how I see this is there are a lot of people, especially on Twitter right now, trying to get a payday for engagement purposes. And they are putting up videos that are old, or photos that have been photoshopped or AI generated. And they are trying to get engagement, and they're putting this out. I saw a video today that, or it was an image of something that somebody said was flying over New Jersey, and it looked very alien. And come to find out, it was actually from, I think a couple of years ago in Colombia, in the country of Colombia. And it started to run wild of, oh, what is this? What is this? And now then the accounts backtrack and go, oh yeah, well, this was in Colombia, I misspoke, but it's still some sort of alien device. And this is all just engagement. So like I always tell people with everything, you can have that initial emotional response like we all have, especially conspiracy kind of guys like us, where it's fun and we want to go down the rabbit hole. But once the fog clears and you get a better understanding of what it really is, that should sort of change your opinion on what you think. And I would say, if you think I'm saying it's not that dangerous because because the government is saying it's not dangerous or anything, I would much rather it be aliens than to be an adversary that's trying to collect intelligence, especially in New Jersey. That's a great spot to collect intelligence. They have a lot of intelligence in New Jersey, from what I hear. You would have to confirm or deny that, being close to New Jersey there. But sorry, that's a dig on some Jersey friends that I have.
It's from Philadelphia. I can join in as well. But and for other people to know, I guess from that, it is one of those areas. So, Kervin, I just want to thank you so much for being so flexible to hop on with me. I know even your work and everything like that is not even remotely close to this as well in different areas. And every day is a different day with you, and things are escalating. And when things escalate, your plate gets very full. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I know that you're hopping on another. So please close out with everybody where they can find you. And personally, before you introduce the podcast, I want to tell everybody, this is really genuine. I every week look forward to listening to This Week Explained with Kervin and his wife. It not only is the best way to assess geopolitical and current events that are going on and get them given to you in a balanced way without hyperboles and without opinions and without all this other stuff, but also, I keep driving this home, if you ever want to just listen to the most comfortable podcast in the world of two human beings who just mutually respect each other, and it's an amazing testament to marriage and to just mutual respect in a relationship, in addition to the quality of content that you're putting out. So I recommend everybody check out Kervin's podcast, and definitely any intros or anything like that as we're closing out, or things to look out for you. I know you got some news. You're hopping on the news here in a little bit as well. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know where to go from that statement. That was the most beautiful generous statement and commentary on our podcast. I wish all the comments were like that, but yeah, that is what we're trying to go for. It's This Week Explained. You can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts, and we're not out to, I think you and I have talked about this. I'm not out to make millions of dollars off of this. I've just noticed that information is getting skewed, and a lot of the big media personalities, especially those that are leaving their media corporations to start their own, are putting out things that are they're just blatantly false, and I want to counter that. So that's part of what I want to do. That's why I wanted to do this with you. As soon as you asked, I 100% wanted to do it because I was looking into it as well, and I hope we brought maybe some clarity. If there's any other questions that pop up and you want me to do. So this was an instant analysis. So some of the things I've said, I'm going to tell you, they might be wrong. Well, they're definitely going to be wrong because, something's going to come out and it's going to change the entire trajectory of this. And that's how the intelligence cycle works. That's why I use my background in intelligence to kind of identify and analyze this situation, because when you use the intelligence cycle, so you're collecting and then you're analyzing, when you get to the dissemination, that final part isn't the final part. It's a full circle. So it starts all over again. You continue to collect you collect different data, and new information changes your assessment. And that's what I want to be clear on. Like we want to, and I do it sometimes too. We want to dunk on people because they get something wrong. People are going to get things wrong. We're human. But the ones that I appreciate more are the ones who can come out and say, hey, my initial assessment was wrong on that. Here is how I'm seeing it now, but I'm still coming from a logical point of view. I hope that's what we did here. You can find me on Twitter, sometimes bleep posting, sometimes putting out some good assessments, start putting articles out there as well. We've got one coming out this week on the proliferation of open source intelligence accounts. That's going to be a good one. It's going to get some of the misinformation Twitter OSINT accounts very mad and coming at me. So join me along for that journey as I GIF post every single response I get, every negative response I get on that one. But yeah, I'm not here to make millions of dollars. If that comes, that comes. I don't think that's what either one of us are trying to do. We just want to see things clearly, and I like these conversations that we're having. I love the conversations within my network with you. Even when we see things differently, we can come together and see each other's point of view and why we feel that way. I think that's very important. And if we can continue to do that as a society, I think this world is going to be in a much better place. We might find that we are a lot more alike than we are different when we sit down and talk to each other.
That's exactly it. And in closing, for anybody that was looking for some stuff, we did not rule out aliens. I want everybody to know that number is not zero. So I want anybody that's like overwhelmed with the military talk and everything like that, that number is not a goose egg. So until we have more information, we definitely have all options are still on the table as of today. Today is Friday, December 13th, and I would not be a good friend to you if I didn't close out by saying happy birthday, Kervin. And having your birthday on Friday the 13th while drone swarms are covering the country couldn't be better present for an analyst like yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hey, you have a great day. Good luck on the news today.
You too. Stay safe out there.